Hey, welcome to Average Joe Interviews with Logan Tyler. I am the titular Logan Tyler. This is a podcast that came to be because I had interviewed somebody who was moderately famous, and they were incredibly boring. And then I realized the conversations I have with my friends and everyday people are always more interesting. So I got one of the most interesting people I could find, probably the most interesting person you'll ever hear from, to do the first episode. This is my friend, Dusty. Dusty, introduce yourself.
Hi guys, my name is Dusty. Really nice to meet everybody out there in Radio Lane.
So, Dusty is a childhood friend, and he's one of these people that is kind of like a little bit of a modern legend of where you grow up. Everybody from where I'm from either knows Dusty, had a fist fight with Dusty, had a square up moment with Dusty, had a best friend moment with Dusty, had a cry on Dusty's shoulder. And the reason is he's such an open person. He is unapologetically himself 24/7. So I thought, instead of interviewing people who are like, oh, I invented Post-its or some fucking stupid shit and their life is incredibly boring, I want to talk to somebody who has made their life and wealth of getting to know people and being a decent person. So, Dusty, tell them a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Dusty. I'm 28 years old. I just turned 28 in October, actually. I made it all the way to 28, managed to score myself a wife, have myself a small little bambino, and I just, live a normal 9-to-5 lifestyle while trying to find as much humor and as much fun in the monotony that is, unfortunately our time right now. What I try to do.
Yeah, and for you guys listening, it sounds like he's over the phone. That's because he is. Because of COVID and safety precautions, we're doing this via a phone call. But I think it actually sounds pretty good to me. But so Dusty, what has COVID been like for you?
Oh my goodness, it's fucking nuts. All right, I work retail. So my experiences with COVID are not everybody else's experiences with COVID. And I gotta say, for my first global pandemic, 10 out of 10, would not recommend. I am not a fan. It's literally turning everybody into fucking feral beasts at my store, and that's a lot.
That reminds me of the 10 out of 10 thing. I remember at one point, there was this girl that we all talked to, and our friend Damon. I don't want to say the girl's name, but you're probably gonna know who I'm talking about. There was this girl who was kind of like I guess you could say not passed around, but kind of talked at one point to everybody in our group. And Damon saw her and we're like, dude, come on, she's hot. He's like, 2 out of 10 would not bang. And I've used that expression like every day since. And so that 10 out of 10 like would not recommend. Like 2 out of to COVID, like 2 out of 10 would not bang.
No, absolutely. You're right. 2 out of 10 would not bang.
What is like a 1 out of 10 though? Is always like the internal question, because a 2 out of 10 is almost more insulting. Like, what is a 1 out of 10? Like a non-living thing?
So like a 1 out of 10 for me would be like all the weed on the planet. That's a 1 out of 10.
A 1 out of 10 is like all the ladies who are super into like Pokemon Go, you know what I mean? Like you'd be getting to know somebody, and they'd be like, "You want to go like walk around and pretend to catch things instead of play the actual game inside like a normal person?" Like, oh, okay, I guess I can't talk to you ever again. Oh well.
Even more so. 1 out of 10. Can I speak to the manager?
Oh, the Karen dude.
Would not bang.
So, speaking of bang, let's just like jump into like a really weird topic. Who was your first kiss? You don't have to give a last name, and what was it like?
First kiss.
I want to know the love story of one Dusty, the suave Dusty. How did he start?
And I'll be honest, it's so long that I forget her name. I'm pretty sure it's like Natasha. I was a wee young Dusty, and she had gave me a big old smooch at a sleepover we were having. She had to go home early. Well, fat, 10-year-old Dusty is all hyped up to take her home. He's been sleeping without a shirt on, so he definitely just drug her ass home with him while he was not wearing a shirt. As soon as I took my shirt off, I never got another kiss from her again. I'll tell you that.
I remember my first. What was that?
It was dry too. Her lips were like chapped, and it was just 1 out of 10 would not bang.
That's it. That's the 1 out of 10. A shirtless Dusty would not bang. I remember my first kiss.
Nope.
It was this girl named Aaliyah. You probably could figure out who she is if you know us, but I'm not gonna say her last name. If you're from where I'm from, you could probably figure it out. And I'm like probably like 8 years old, and I'm chewing baby carrots at the time, and she's having us play Truth or Dare in my friend John's sandbox, and we don't even understand like the significance of these truths or dares. Like she's like daring herself to like flash us, which like clearly tells me that there was probably some sexual violence in the home of some sort, because this like 8-year-old girl was like showing us her not tits. And I remember she dared me to kiss her, and I remember having baby carrots in my mouth. So now like all bad kisses I associate with like chewed up baby carrots.
Yeah, but your kiss was also good for her eyes, and that's fucking plus.
But no, like and then also you reminded me of this other girl. I remember me and our friend Damon were like not fighting, but kind of like in competition over this girl. He broke up with her, so I went out with her. And I remember she kissed like a fish, dude, like this adult girl, like basically an adult. We're like 17, maybe 16, I don't know. And we're like kissing, and she kind of like formed her mouth like a fish and just kind of does like a swishing around motion. And as I got older, I realized maybe that wasn't that she couldn't kiss. Maybe she just didn't want to kiss me.
I think in my experience, I've learned when a girl does that, it's got a name. It's called the tank cleaner. And it's because they have only watched consummate fish and angelfish kiss, so they don't know how to do it themselves.
Could you try to speak a little bit clearer? I think you said something about cosmic fish or whatever.
Oh, that's because they see the consummate fish and angelfish kiss, and they don't know how to kiss themselves.
So do you think they're copying fish kiss?
Yeah.
Yeah, it is kind of like a fish-like motion. It is really something.
Yeah.
What was like but I really think now, like looking back, because this girl, I was on social media, and I don't know if you remember, but it wasn't intentional either. I just had a really nice face and a really bad body. So a lot of my Facebook pictures, I looked kind of hunky, and I looked like a sexy little emo boy. And then people would meet me, and I was a larger man than they expected. And I think that's really what happened. I think that she met me in person, was like, yikes. But like, what is like a notable moment of rejection that you had in your life?
Oh my goodness. Notable moment of rejection. I was with somebody. I don't want to name her because I don't want her. She hears that I don't want to be all shitty and shit. I was with somebody, and I was laying on the romantic. Super smooth. And about this time in life, we had the movie theater in LaPorte, and it was like $1 for movies. Like all the kids and all the teenagers went to the movie theater, and we were all out there with a bunch of fucking idiots. Thugging out and juggaloing out, whatever it is.
Thugging around.
Yeah, thugging around as we did as kids. And she definitely left me for a guy named Johnny.
Johnny.
And then
is it the foot guy?
The foot guy.
The fucking foot guy?
The foot guy.
Let me interrupt your story for a second to tell you my foot guy story. I have a legitimate fucked up foot guy story. I was working on music back in the day, and I don't know if you know this about Foot Guy. He was actually a pretty okay musician. I imagine it was all a sociopathy. That's probably what made him good. But at one point, I told him, I was like, hey, man, I'll meet you after school for this band practice thing, because we were going to start like a band. I was in like 1,000 bands back in the day. But I told him, don't text me, though, because I'm going into Mr. Goggles' class, I think was his name. And sorry, shout out to Mr. Goggle or Goggle or whatever your name is. I was in 8th grade. Mr. Goggle, is that what it was?
Mr. Goggle.
Mr. Goggle. Okay. I thought it was something like that. I said, don't text me, I'm going to this class. And my phone was so old, it didn't have a vibrate on it. It just had the ring. And I had, literally had, like, if you've ever seen Halloween, I have, there's a beginning part of the movie where somebody's getting killed and they yell, Michael, like really shriekish. And he texted me knowing that it would fuck me. And just in the middle of my math test, he just goes, Michael, like super fucking loud. And like, I would have gotten away with it because like nobody had any idea like why the fuck somebody would yell Michael. Like they didn't necessarily know that it was a ringtone, but I was so like half asleep and scared by the loud noise that I jumped up and he's like, well, I'm going to guess that's your phone. And I got fucked for that. So like, fuck that. He did it. He's just said, LOL, I'm going to send you a text anyway. He's a little feet fucking asshole. And he got me ISS, so fuck that guy. Anyway, continue your story.
No joke. So, and this the girl I'm talking to is somebody we've both dated.
Oh, okay.
And so she fucking leaves me for foot guy.
Jesus.
And it's come to find out, it's not because she likes the guy, but it's because his ass is willing to walk, 10 miles in a snowstorm, pay her $10 and take pictures of her fucking feet.
Jesus Christ. But I wouldn't necessarily call that like full on rejection. I mean, there's definitely worse rejections out there. The fact that she was just trying to make like bankroll, you know what I mean, isn't the worst rejection ever. But if it's the girl I'm thinking of, she had really creepy feet, so that's something else. It starts with a G, right? You still there, buddy? Oh, hold on, people. Let me pause. It looks like Dusty has left the building. Give me 1 second. Hey, we're back. Sorry about that, guys. It looks like things just kind of cut off there. I think it was maybe the Wi-Fi or the storm, but we're back on. We're back with the Dusty cans. But yeah, the girl I was talking about, did her name start with a G?
Yes, it did.
Okay. She had weird feet, so I find that utterly shocking. That I mean, maybe that's why he'd want to take pictures of it.
Right.
She never wear her shoes anywhere.
Maybe taking pictures of her feet. Maybe taking pictures of her feet is the equivalent of like seeing Bigfoot for him.
Yeah, it's like it's just like that section of Pornhub that everybody has. The one section that people don't talk about they're into. Their like special section. It's different for everybody.
But
he's like into like weird like Hobbit feet. They were Hobbit-like, dude. They walked through basically Mordor. This girl never wore shoes anywhere, and her feet were like at the bottom. They were similar to like a gorilla. They were like really fucking like solid and like broken up, and they were creepy as fuck. She cheated on me with the person that later became her husband. So I was like her last. I think I was her last like official boyfriend before she got with her husband. So that's interesting. What was I saying? We were totally on something about. Oh yeah. But no, I was actually I was thinking of a different rejection story I thought you could share, and not that I want to force it out of you, but there was one in particular you recently told me that was interesting involving milk.
Was that the Oviatt story?
Oh yeah. Well, we're gonna out her. But yeah, I'm cool with outing her. I don't care. But yeah, Oviatt. Definitely, that was the story.
So, I was in high school, and I'm still a heavy set guy. I push out around 210 now, but I'm kind of in shape. In high school, I was literally the fucking opposite of that. Take like a big handful of Play-Doh and then throw it on the ground, and that's the shape of my body. And I was a big fat bastard for sure. And I had pulled up enough courage to ask somebody who was extremely popular and extremely hot out. And I should get like a medal for pulling myself up, to go ask her out. But at this point in time, my belly, I had a dicky do, and that's where my belly poked out farther than my dicky do. So I had no point in time in trying to ask her any fucking thing at all. And I definitely came up to her. She's sitting at the table with all of her fucking popular friends, and I, drug my gut across the floor, and I waddled my fat ass over there. And I was like, "Hey, would you go out with me?" And she started laughing, and she got up and she took her carton of milk and she poured it on my fucking head. She said, I'd never date anybody like you," and laughed and laughed, and all of her friends laughed and laughed, and I died a little inside that day.
It's crazy. Like that's like a John Hughes film level rejection. Like I don't think you realize how significant of a rejection that is, because people don't experience that in their lives. People don't know that kind of rejection. So yeah, I'm telling you, dude,
you read in a book.
Yeah, that's like some shit you like get out of like a fucking the YA novel. You know what I mean? Like that's some shit you'd read about in like a book like The Hunger Games or some shit. You know what I mean? So it's pretty funny. Right. It's pretty funny, but it's also like, damn, that's attributing like how strong of a dude you are. Because I know people who would just crumble at the fucking mention of that story.
I'm so far over it now. And when it happened, don't get me wrong, it shook me to my fat little core for sure. I was very depressed and very upset about it, but I also, have to stop and realize that said person's probably, had more people in her than a baseball team at this point in time. I don't have to worry about any of that shit.
I'm so wondering, because a lot of people I went to school with listen to the podcast now. Not this one, because this is our first one, but the other ones I do. And I get a lot of messages from people you would never expect to like kind of like, hey, I want to be a part of your thing. I want to be on your thingy, or can you help me start my own thing? And I'm really interested to see if this gets back to her. And also like how like accurate it is to now. Like if she feels bad, because I mean, everybody's done some shit that they feel bad about now. I wonder if this is something where she looks back on it as like, wow, I was a real cunt. Or if she looks back on it like, he shouldn't have asked me out. He shouldn't have been in my presence.
My presence.
My presence. My orange presence. She had like the worst, dude, she had the worst spray tan ever, bro. She was walking around the hallways looking like an orange Mento. God. It was insane.
But she was a really hot orange Mento.
She was like you were like, she's the hottest orange Mento. I just wanted to fresh my breath. She did not, though. Not at all.
She did not. However, I did recover from that, and being a senior, I did definitely probably hook up with like a sophomore after
that. That's like, I remember me and Dusty used to be in drama club together, and I remember my sophomore year, I was the vice president, and then Dusty was the president, and like Dusty spent his senior year pretty much like doing all the shit that he didn't get to do like the beginning part of high school. He's like, I'm just gonna fucking mac on some chicks. Like you would show up to drama club and like I'd run the drama club and you'd sit in the back with just like some honeys. You know what I mean? Do you remember that?
I definitely abused my power.
You were like literally like you were the JFK of drama club presidents. You would just be like, all right. There would be like some like sophomore girl with braces like, Mr. President, happy birthday. That's how it was like the whole time. And I just remember thinking like one day that'll be me. That never happened because I had to move to Cincinnati. But
and you came out far better because you didn't spend a lot, and it attests to a lot of like the problems that I had later on in life was with my wanting to be with honeys all the time. And LaPorte was just full of pops, and it was just bad times. It was really a dark rabbit hole, and you should be glad that you didn't match fucking honeys.
Yeah, for me, I was a bit of a serial monogamist, and it was really hard to be that because in LaPorte, everybody kind of there's such a limited amount of people that you cycle through a lot of the same people because there's certain groups of certain interests. Like LaPorte, like when I moved to Cincinnati, one thing I learned is that there weren't as many cliques. Like I was just as likely to hang out with somebody who was like kind of like country styled, or like, you know, somebody who was like a foreign exchange student. Whereas like in LaPorte, it was very much like, okay, you have a certain subgroup of friends that are into the same stuff you are, and there's no way anybody will go out of those lines because all the groups hate each other. But there was one tying tether to all that, and it was the fact that every group liked you. Like, it was like always like, if there was a certain group that I had dealt with and I didn't like, I'd be like, man, that person fucking sucks. And you'd be the first person to be like, nah, man, he's just misunderstood. I know that. That's a good guy. Like, you were always the person who kind of knew everybody.
I'm a very outgoing person. I generally like to be around people. I like to just see people. I like to hear their experiences and stuff. And like, you know, people sit outside and watch birds. Well, I just have always been like a see how people as creatures live type of guy. And it served me really well through my life for sure. It's something I got from my grandpa, something he taught me, and it served me really well.
Yeah, I mean, I remember the moment. Granted, we had multiple moments where we had reconnected, but there was one moment where I realized that you were going to be significant in my life. And it was a pretty selfless moment, too. I was walking home from school, and I'm not going to say there was somebody in my life, in my personal life, that was involved in some crime and some gang stuff. I won't say who it is because I don't know if I have permission to do that. But because of this, I unbeknownst to me, become a target of a gang attack. And even though LaPorte is a small town, like I said, it's so rifted into groups that there was crime. There is gangs. They're just, you know, they're not like serious ass gangs, but they'll jump you and fuck you up. Like I mean, we're talking about Northwest Indiana, baby. People fuck each other up all the time. Fights are real. When I moved to Cincinnati, I learned that like most high schools, that fights don't actually happen. Where we're from, every fight happens. Every single fight. But I didn't know this, but there was some, I'm not even going to say the gang because I don't want to like, you know, give them any clout or anything. But there was a gang of dudes waiting for me at Family Video on my way home, and you had heard about it. And I literally didn't know you, except for we both went to a midnight release of a movie, and that's where we met. Like, I did not know you as a person. I knew your name was Dusty, and at the time you wore a fedora, and that's all I knew about you. And you overheard them saying, hey, we're going to whoop this dude's ass. I'm walking home in makeup because I'm like goth as fuck. And you stop me and you go, hey, bro, in like 5 minutes, there's going to be some of these insert gangster name here people here, and they're going to try to whoop your ass. And I'm like, okay, should I run or hide? He's like, nah, baby. You're like, nah, baby, I'm gonna help you out. I was like, you said there's a few. You're like, yeah, I got it. And and sure enough, like before I can even really react to what you're saying, 2 cars pull up. 2 very adult looking people are in these cars. And then there's a bunch of kids in the back seats and the passenger side. And they get out and they're like, you're such and such, you know, relation to person. And I'm like, yeah, I'm Logan. Hi. Hello. Like trying to be like super calm. They're like, yeah, we're going to fuck you up, bitch. And then you get in front of me and you go, you want to mess with my team? And you run at them full force. You slam one of them on top of his car and bend his hood and proceed to beat the fuck out of 4 of those dudes by yourself. And at this point, the action movie begins because while you're fighting them, 2 dudes, the additional 2 dudes start chasing after me. I hit one with the Family Video door, and then the other dude runs into the game section with me. I knock like one of the racks on him and start wailing on him. And when I come outside, you had successfully beaten down 4 gang members and your shirt was like torn in half. And then you were just like, all right, let's get you home. And we leave the situation. You walk me halfway to my home because you walk me to like the train tracks where I cut through. And then I literally did not speak to you for like 2 years out until like 2 years later.
That's so crazy. When you tell it and I see it in my head, I'm like, I was fucking nuts. I was wilding out.
Dude.
I don't, fighting 4 dudes at once. I'm like, I mean, but if nobody's going to help this guy, I suppose I'll help this guy.
Yeah, I mean, granted, there was a chick there who was watching, and maybe this was for the impressment of the chick, but regardless, you beat the fuck out of 4 dudes, 2 of them full-grown adults, by yourself, and all you walked away with was, like, you had, like, a shiner on your cheek and, like, a ripped shirt.
Yeah, but they ripped, that was my favorite Metallica shirt.
I know.
And they ripped it.
I know. I remember my
I still shed a tear for that shirt.
My eyeliner was all crazy, you know, because I was a little emo boy, goth boy, so I had like my makeup was all fucked up. I got home and I looked like Kesha in that TikTok video. and my dad's just like, "What happened?" And I was like, "I don't know." And then I explained what happened. He's like, "That Dusty guy sounds like a guardian angel." I was like, you know, I guess in some ways, maybe. I'm like, you know, I really do feel like I would have been pretty fucked up if it had just been me. I mean, because I barely beat off the 2 dudes. Beat them off. But I barely fought off the You beat them off. Come here. I'll do anything to get out of this. I'll do anything to get out of a beating. Yeah, but, no, but I barely fought off the 2 dudes. You know, and then, like, I don't know how it started, but like for some reason, a bunch of juggalos after that, maybe it was because of you, I don't know, but a bunch of juggalos after that were like, "You're a family. We'll never let something like that happen to you." And I was like, okay, because I wasn't a juggalo. I didn't even like ICP. I was like, okay, cool, thanks. And then from that point on, everybody would always thought I was one because whenever anything came up in my life, it was like a bunch of dudes with like trip pants on would show up. And I'm like, is this like Dusty's little juggalo army? Is it related? Because it was right after that happened. And I never asked you because it never came up. But like, was that because of you that like a bunch of juggalos were like, "This is our boy now"?
Like, okay, so like, now that I'm not playing my whole Dark Knight stick and that, you know, saving your life and then disappearing for 2 years, I definitely, at that point in time, had been heavily involved with juggalos. A lot of my friends juggalos. I was always hanging out with them at the movie theater and stuff. And I did tell them that to watch out for you because you were a cool guy. And we had a lot of beef going on with, you know, insert gang here anyway.
Yeah.
And with just, you know, me and every other person in the town at that point in time. And I definitely told them, look, the enemy of my enemy is my friend.
Yeah.
He's the enemy of my enemy. He's our friend too.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You can't let him get beat up by these assholes.
A beautiful friendship did come out of it, though, you know, like later on.
Absolutely.
And what was even funnier is like, you looked so different when we had started talking again. We met playing D&D with a buddy. We re-met, I mean. And I was like, do I know you from somewhere? You're like, "Yeah, I saved your life, you fucking putz," or something like that. And you fucking putz, I saved your life. How could you forget me? But and I just remember thinking like, wow, this is the same dude that did that, because it was such like a mythical character at that point. You know what I mean? Because you were also, I was in middle school, you were in high school, so I was like, you were kind of like a distant figure for me. But then, like, that summer we met during D&D, I was going into high school. So, like, I was getting to know people, and, like, you were, like, my first, like, big friend that I made because of the summer. And I remember just thinking, like, I'm so fucking cool because you were the dude who knew everybody, who was friends with everybody. And the people you weren't friends with were, like, people that you had, like, senselessly beaten.
I'm an easy guy to get along with. I like people. I don't have any tolerance for bad people, or people who are like gonna recklessly put other people unwillingly in harm's way. That's just not my thing. At that point in time, I was real big about like just trying to be friends with everybody, because despite being able to fight, I don't like to fight people. You know what I mean? I prefer to be pretty calm and shit.
Well, yeah, that's true. But also at the same time, you did start doing wrestling, and you are a fighter, that's for sure. What do you think in your life drove you to to do fighting, not only in like, you know, wrestling stance, but to not be a violent person, but to be a subvertant, strong, willing to fight, not flight person? What do you think in your life, or what elements, you know, if it's not just one thing, what are some elements that you think led you to being the person who'd square up, or the person who uses fighting to get off aggression? Like, where do you think all that comes from?
It's just I had like a really good childhood, but I did have like rough childhood for school wise. I was really bullied a lot, even when I was in elementary school, because I've always been a heavy set guy. You know, so I was always getting bullied, and I just saw, you know, somebody treat my mom like super bad all the time, and I get, you know, treat me bad all the time, and I couldn't do anything about it because I was so small, or I was too weak, you know. So eventually I just taught myself and learned from, you know, a couple, you know, people to learn how to fight, and got my skills up, and decided that I would use it, you know, to defend my person or defend others who can't defend themselves. And I would just, you know, harness it as a way to let loose, but not do it as in like to hurt people all the time.
Yeah. So like what's a story, like a big turning point story, either whether being bullying or your personal life? What's like one story or time that really stands out?
And my life has been such a chaotic, like, railroad clusterfuck that it's hard to pinpoint like an exact time. So like when I was younger, probably about 7th grade, I was at the movie theater, and a bunch of boys from the middle school, Kessling Middle School, were at the bowling alley, and they were all gonna be in gangs. And this kind of ties into like why I fought for you, actually pretty heavily. These guys are future members of said gang that jumped you.
Gotcha.
And one of them had jumped off the back of an SUV and landed on my back, and I was trying to run, and the two dudes grabbed my legs and pulled me out to my face. And I was really heavy. I didn't have any idea how to fight or anything. I fell down, and the guy on the top started slamming my head on the floor. The other two dudes were kicking the shit out of me, and they did it for what felt like forever, but it's probably 35, 40 seconds before some guy in a red car with like big Mickey Mouse gloves on, drunk out of his mind, pulls out of the bowling alley and fucking gets these guys away, and like picks me up and takes me subconsequently to the movie theater, where they don't want to come over because the people at the movie theater don't like them. So they'll fight. So he took me over there and like talked to me and explained, you know, that I'm gonna have to change in order to like not have to deal with this all the time.
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah.
And he's like, let me work with you a little bit. And that moment, like with him seeing that I needed the help, and then me realizing that this is, you know, the only way I'm going to be able to do this, went from, I guess I'll just let everybody beat me up, to it's time to start knocking people out.
Yeah, definitely. No, and the thing is like, I'll say this. Now, I think we can both say that we don't condone random acts of violence on people, but I will say this. The way you've always fought people, and you know, not just in like your wrestling stuff, but also like in your private life, is it always has to be a breaking point, or it has to be an act on protecting somebody else. You know, like I've always said that you were kind of, not just for me, but I know for a lot of people, and there's going to be some people who disagree with me on this because, you know, like I said, you're a pretty public figure where we come from. You're like a little local celebrity. There's going to be people who say that everything I'm saying is bullshit and that all the fights you did weren't justified, but I was there with you, man. I know on multiple occasions, you help people that couldn't stick up for themselves. And, you know, at one point, like you said, I was one of those people. And I think that seeing somebody put themselves in a line of like peril and danger just for somebody else because they can't do it themselves is so big of you. And I think that a lot of it has kind of turned into the way I handle things. Like I don't let people walk on people anymore. Now, granted, some people are you can't help, but for the most part, if I see somebody being mistreated, even if it's somebody I don't like, and you've done this too, you try to convince that person, like, hey, you only get to live once. You should live the way you want to live, not care about what anybody else thinks of you, not let people dislike you for the way you look, dislike you for what you're into, beat on you because you're into Magic the Gathering or My Little Pony or whatever the fuck you're into. Don't let people beat on you for that. Like stand up for yourself. And I think that's something that you may not realize you've had an impact on me with, but like Dusty, you were very impactful to the way that I've handled a lot of aspects of my life. And not to say now granted, I think you'll agree with me here. You've made some mistakes. You've acted on anger a few times. You like anybody else. You've made some huge mistakes. But ultimately what I take away from you is I don't ever think about those mistakes. I always just think about how like you're a dude who had no good reason to defend the people you've defended multiple times. And like that's something that I strive to be. So like you know, just know that you're very influential to me in the way that I handle my business and the way that I handle my personal life. I don't let people walk on me. I don't let people walk on other people.
And if I do anything in life, if anybody takes anything from what I've said, you know, in this so far, it's that you shouldn't let people just walk on the little people.
No.
You know, there's no reason for anybody to, you know, belittle and apply themselves above other people. We're all little ants on this spinning rock. We're all going through the same shit. It's just, you know, it's the same soup, just reheated. That's my moniker. And for sure, I fully grasp that I've made my mistakes. And part of making mistakes is owning those mistakes and then learning from those mistakes. And I've learned from my mistakes 10 times over, you know, and I'll be honest, I've probably said some mean things to you in the past out of anger.
Oh yeah.
And, you know, I do remember I'm the scum of the earth.
Yeah, I've said some mean things too. At
but
one
it's
point,
okay.
Let me explain that actually, so people know the context. There was a point where Dusty, if I can speak freely on it, was like kind of going through some really tough shit, and because of that, like he didn't have a lot of clothes or like a place to live, and he was living with me, which I was still in school at the time, but I think you had just dropped out. No, you were still in school at this point, and I guess it was a mixture of us being around each other too much, but also like Dusty is absolutely the I'm going to take care of people type. And I think you can find this true about yourself. You're not good at taking help ever. Like that's a big minus for you. You don't like taking help from people. You don't like a handout. You've never been that way. So when me and my dad were helping you of course appreciated it. And you were like so gracious about everything, but you would always be like, it was like a little chip on your shoulder sometimes. Like, whenever I'd like and the thing is, I was a kid, so I would make jokes like, hey, Dusty, you know, since I'm letting you live here rent free, can you do this for me? And it was like always kind of a joke because I knew it'd get a rise out of you. And looking back, I feel bad about doing that stuff because I think that it really affected you. Especially since you were the kind of guy that if I just asked you to do something without adding the whole since you live here line, you'd probably do it because you're a decent dude. But I think we had gotten to a boiling point where we had gotten in an argument. And I guess like we were just kind of sick of being around each other so much. And we got into an argument at school and you said something along the lines of like, Logan, you are like always on my ass about shit, blah, 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 blah. And I responded with, well, you're the fucking scum of the earth. You live in my fucking place, like rent, blah, 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 blah. And I remember the meme was like, oh, I don't need to stay at your house then tonight. I'll go to fucking this house. And you like pushed me and I pushed you back, and you were like, "You're so lucky I love you, or I'd fuck you up," and then you walked away. And later on that night, I'm watching internet porn on my computer, and this is that time where you had like one computer, you didn't have like a laptop or like a smartphone. I'm watching porn on my computer, and you come up to the room, you open the door without knocking. I'm in my tidy fucking whities because that was laundry day. And you were just like, I don't care that you're fucking tidy whities and I could see you fat bastard ass. I love you. And I came up here to say I'm sorry. And I'm like, I'm sorry too, buddy. And we hugged like right before I was about to like blast the basket. And that memory is so funny to me because it's like, you know, we were so close. You didn't even care that I was literally in my underwear. You were like, nah, you're my boy. But it goes back to like, you know, I made mistakes in the sense that I said things to you then because, you know, I felt entitled because you were living in my house as if I like paid for it or anything, you know, as if it was at all my house. It wasn't like my dad's or anything. But like, you know, you also made mistakes. Like I remember you got drunk a couple of times and you've had some issues with drinking. And like, I think that this podcast is important because we're both somebody who made tons of mistakes, but we're so open about talking about them, you know?
You know, and I fully admit that I struggled really hard with drinking. I had a substance abuse problem and an alcohol problem. And this all stems from like when I got done living with you and kind of did my own thing. I made a lot of bad decisions. You know, I literally quit my job at Little Caesars. I was a fucking sign spinner.
Mm-hmm.
And I quit my job because I wanted to go over to my buddy's house and drink vodka on the roof.
Yeah, I mean, and the thing about our town is, and you know, like, I'm not trying to be disrespectful because there's people that I've lost because of this too. When you grow up in a boring northwestern Indiana town, that is so classic and old school that they don't want to open up anything recreational for kids. They want to keep everything looking classic and traditional, and kids have nothing to do. You know, they turn to recreational shit. And, you know, I don't think weed is a problem for people. And I think if you can handle your alcohol, that's something that you could decide on your own. I think weed is obviously safer, but, you know. But, I mean, things would escalate because we were all really young people doing drugs and alcohol since we were, like, 15, you know? Like, doing things that people usually start in college. We were starting at, like, the turning point of our brains, like, starting to become adults, like, the very beginning. And a lot of people, you know, got, you know, rest in peace. Like there's tons of people we've lost. And I remember at a time right around before I moved, I was so scared that I was going to lose you because you were making a lot of bad decisions with alcohol, like really bad decisions. And I just remember like seeing you and like even though you'd be like still large, like your face just looked like it was like washed out. And I don't know if it was because of the car crash or like what, but like then you had this really bad car crash where you pretty much almost died. I don't know if people remember that or not. But after that car crash, you know, I don't know if it was directly after, like it was around this time. Things had started to change for you and you got healthier. You know, you lost some weight. Granted, I know some of that was because you didn't have any money for food or shit, but like you started, I feel like now, even though, you know, you still have some problems that people can't avoid, everybody has issues. But like you're taking so much better care of yourself with like, you know, your wife and your kid and, you know, you're holding a job and like, you know, like I'm so proud of you for that, like legit. But I wanted to talk about, what do you think was like your lowest point?
Oh, my lowest point would probably be probably right after my car accident. Actually, come to think about it, it was definitely my last trip on the carnival. I was traveling around Michigan. For those of you that don't know, I worked on the carnival a bunch. I worked 2 years on the first one, and then I worked a year on this last one that I did 4 or 5 years ago now. But I was a carny, and when I was out running around Michigan and just, drinking all the time and doing these drugs and partying and just hooking up with these fucking strangers and stuff. I, realized that there's nothing good for me in LaPorte, and that I needed, that there's no point for me to do anything. So I just kept partying and partying and partying. And it definitely, it took its toll on my body. It definitely brought me depression. I contemplated killing myself frequently because of, who I was with and the scenario I put myself in. I put myself in a lot of danger when I was out there doing stuff. And when I didn't care. And that was the problem. Was like, I didn't give a shit, It was like, whatever, I'll just exist and it'll be fine.
Yeah, I think.
And when I finally came to, like, my senses a little bit, I was like, well, if I'm gonna stop, living this life, I have to stay out of Indiana. I can't go back to Indiana because the same old haunts are in Indiana. So I ended up moving up here to Michigan, where I'm at now.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I have a lot of concepts I want to do in the future about LaPorte, and I think eventually, if I get some funding, I'm gonna do something big for it. But what I want to say though is a lot of people think that leaving your problems, like leaving them behind, is a weakness, but sometimes. And not to say that the town itself is the issue. I feel like a lot of the times it's more of the ties we've drawn. Change is good. Change is refreshing because wherever you go, if you move, you can start being the person that you wanted to be without the people constantly telling you, who already know who you are, that you can't change. And that's the one thing I'll give you, Dusty. Like, you moving, I think in big part is how I feel you've come to be more the Dusty that I know as just your overall persona. Like, there used to be a night and day aspect to you sometimes where it would be like, Dusty is the Dusty that I love. Dusty is the Dusty that, cares about himself, cares about his family, cares about his kid. Before you even had a kid, just cares about people. And then there would be a version of you that was like really like kind of distant and couldn't handle any sort of judgment or any sort of like introspection on who you are. And that's totally changed for you. And that's why I think that, like, your life has gotten better, even though, I mean, like I said, everybody's got issues. I feel like you are living such a fuller life now. And it's really awesome. And I think that it's just, it's going to be a time thing. As time goes on, it's just going to become more and more full because you're opening yourself up to be the you that you actually are. You're not putting up this safeguard of toughness and like, you can't say this to me. You can't act that way to me. I think that you've changed in the best way. And like, for people out there who have, I think it's fair to say you have anger issues. Would you agree?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
So people out there who have anger issues, because I have them too, there's like almost like a backseat driver, like sitting in the back seat, like aspect to them, an outer body experience aspect to them. For those of you who are out there listening to this, and that's something that you experience, like you feel like you're kind of riding in the back seat of your own anger, like it doesn't happen overnight, but you can make a change. And it's not even, I mean, for Dusty, he was moving. But maybe for you, it's picking up a hobby you always wanted to do. It's disregarding a comment that you always hear about yourself and doing the opposite. Like, nobody, I promise you, nobody would have ever said that the Dusty that I knew in high school would be married with a kid. Not in a fucking million years. Dusty was Mr. Sly Man. Let me hook up with all the honeys. Let me go into one friendship. And then the moment that person like does me wrong, like back out of it, not give them the chance. Like, Dusty was very much no nonsense. And, I get a more forgiving, more real vibe from you now.
And my wife and my kids, they changed my whole world, and it's fantastic. I love it. my anger controlled a lot and ruined a lot of really good friendships. I could have had so much more in life had I not let my anger dictate everything. And like you said, moving was for me what did it. But not everybody else gets that. Stand up helps a lot of people. I have a bunch of friends who stand up because they can tell an angry joke and it's cool and it's funny and they get their aggression out through the punchline and stuff like that. It's cool to be angry because we're humans and that's in our nature. But what's not cool is letting your anger drive you and ruin your life. You should never let an emotion control your body. You should always be like, look, I know I'm angry now. I'm going to not be angry eventually. I should probably just let it simmer. And it's a lot easier said than done. And I know that 100% for a fact. It's a whole lot easier said than done. My big thing, and not to make light of any situations, the real turner point for me was so we're going to delve into a drunk Dusty on the carnival story real quick.
Yeah.
I used to run the big swing set, and that was cool. One night I got really drunk on Jägermeister and a bunch of whiskey, and I was drinking Still Reserves because I was a crazy carny alkie. And they were like, Dusty, I need you to climb all the way to the top of this tower. And it was just my buddies and I, and we were all drunk and playing a practical joke. They had tied all these rides together and shit, and they wanted me to climb up and put a light bulb with a middle finger on it, so it set out it outlined a middle finger. And I was drunk as shit. And I was like, fuck yeah, I'm on it. I climbed this tower, and the ride is these seats. It takes you up really high, and then it drops you down really fast. Everybody's been on them. Everybody's seen them. I climbed about halfway up. This thing's probably 100 feet in the air, and I get about 30 or 40 feet in the air, and I'm drunk as shit. I look down, I look up, and the wind's blowing, and it's rocking, and I'm like, I'm gonna die. And Brandon looks at me and goes, you all right up there? And I was like, yeah. And then I threw up and promptly climbed down.
Jesus Christ.
And I climbed any farther, I definitely would have fallen and died. And right there, I the next day, after seeing all the carnage and looking up and seeing it sober, I was like, well, you got to quit. You're about to you're gonna get yourself killed, dude.
That's the big turning point. You're like, yeah, I almost died to give somebody the middle finger. Essentially.
Yeah, I gotta quit.
Dusty's, you've always done the things that people don't want to do because of just random shit. I remember I had this when you were living with us, we had just had an issue where pipes had burst, our shit pipes, for the toilets. And
oh god, I remember this.
There was also a thing where if let's say the house, because I had an old house. I had this old fucking house. It was it had wood paneling living room we were in the fucking 70s. It was so old. And I was a big man then, and we had a basement that was the stairs were so terrible that if I was to walk down them, I would have busted through them. Now, granted, I was a big boy, but stairs should not be that feeble. But Dusty was not as big as me, and he was also athletic, so if a stair had broken, he could easily jump up on the railing and shit. That's the kind of guy he was. He was big, but he was always athletic. And what happened is with the house had gotten too much electricity ran, and then the power cut, and you have to go down to the basement to flip on the electrical. And the basement was filled up with shit water, which we didn't know this at the time. Filled up with shit water to ankle length, ankle height. And when we looked down there, it was me, my sister, and Dusty. You could just see it looked like my fucking basement was flooding, like that one movie about that lady fighting that shark during a hurricane. It was like it was like ankle high. Like it was like a fucking pond of shit. It was like all brown, gray water. Really, really gross.
There was rats down there.
There were rats.
They were fucking huge.
There were rats, and they were huge, and they had gotten in via the pipe burst as well, like because the ground, like where the ground was, they had gone through that. So there was newly living rats that were swimming around like it was fucking Adult Swim and shit. And Tiffany was not willing to go down. My sister, she was like, I can't go down there. There's literally shit down there. I'm just not going to do that. And my dad was this was in between my dad working where we lived and working somewhere else because his job had been outsourced. So he was spending whole months at his job, hours away. And my sister and I were staying at our house. And she was like, watching me. Even though I was a teenager, I could do everything on my own. And Dusty was living with us to help out for a while. So Dusty is like, fuck it. And he climbs down these steps. He treads through shit. See, at one point, he turns the lights back on, and then he's coming up to the steps, and he goes, oh my fucking God, a rat. And I believe you either kicked at it or kicked the actual fucking rat, and then ran up these crumply ass stairs, just covered in shit, like literally covered in it.
Dude, I field goal punted that rat. That fucking thing bounced off the wall and skidded across the shit pond like a stone.
Dude, I just heard a fucking rat, and then just like I heard something hit a wall. I was like, did he just kick a rat?
It was huge. It was like small dog size. It was scary.
Yeah, we didn't know the pipe had burst, because that was like the moment where we found out. So like, but the electric was still off, you know what I mean? And we had to have the electric on because, for one, it was like the summer and it was like 90 fucking degrees. And we needed the air conditioning because we had wall units, like the little window units. So we were dying. So it had to happen. And I remember you came up the steps and you had the shit like all over you. And I go, so how was it? You're like, oh, it was great. Can't you tell? I'm so fucking happy that I went. And you're like, you know what? I'll give you this, though. The shit's kind of refreshing. At least it's nice and cold. Oh, dude, I remember we went outside and we hosed you down and shit. It was crazy. That was so crazy.
Oh, yeah, I'm sure we threw those clothes away. I had to get new shoes.
Yeah, I bought you new shoes, and then we had to get rid of the clothes. Oh no, I didn't buy you new shoes. I gave you those like blue fucking those Vans I had. I remember those so clearly. Yep. Those were nice shoes. And then I think it was like
this is like.
Go ahead.
I think this is like literally a month before I took off running in your black shoes and I fell trying to fight that guy.
That was
and scraped myself up.
That was not even. That was like a week later, not a month later. That was like a fucking week later, dude. Because I remember that girl, the girlfriend you had at the time, who you did not date for very long, I don't think, or maybe you did, but I don't remember that well. But the girlfriend you had at the time that caused that whole fight deal, she came over that day and we told her about the shit and everything, and you were like, and I got it on my hands, and you kept touching her face like, I got poopy on my hands, and it was so fucking funny because you didn't, but she was so freaked out she like ran out of the yard.
She definitely was like, this guy's gonna beat me up, and I was like, I'm coming, and I fucking took off running. I fell and I bounced like a big ball and I rolled a bunch.
I remember you were wearing my Lucky khakis or whatever, like the brand Lucky, not like, Lucky as in they were special in any way, but they were like the brand. And I remember like you tore them up because you fell, and like they were all had a bunch of holes in them now. And you were like, the first thing you were sorry about, like the first thing you came up to about was not about how you fucking wiped the fuck out. You're like, Logie, I ruined your pants. And I'm like, nah, dude, it looks tasteful. You gave him nice rips. You're like, okay, I'm going to go beat that guy's ass now.
I definitely threw that kid's bike in the pond like an asshole.
Yeah, there were some questionable decisions on your part sometimes.
Yeah, there's definitely a little overkill. I took his bike up and threw it in the lake.
Took his bike and threw it in the lake. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Or that there was this. No, go ahead.
I was just saying, man, living with you was like such an influential time. Like it literally helped mold me into a person. It was those are some of the best times for sure.
We had some crazy times. I remember before you lived with me, you were living with this guy who I won't say his name because I, yet again, don't want to give anybody clout. I don't really know if he's a good person or not anymore. It's been so long. I don't know if he ever was. You were living in his house and you were talking to this girl who like definitely was like playing fucking games with you, dog. I remember very clearly. Do you remember who I'm talking about?
Been so many of them that played games, I don't remember anymore, my friend.
She was the one who like, because I was single at the time, she like danced with me at like fall ball, and like I didn't realize that you two were talking, and I remember you were so mad at me, and then I found out, and I was like, I hate you. I told that girl I hated her, but she was.
Okay, yes.
Yeah. And she had done something like fucked up to you. I don't even remember what, but you were so angry, you had a pack of saltines. And you were like, I just want to beat, because there was a dude involved. You're like, I just want to beat this dude's ass. I swear to God. I'm like, Dusty, you can't just go beat his ass just because. You're like, I fucking know, but I want to. And then you took the saltines and you put them in the ceiling fan, and crackers flew all around that guy's house. Like, dude, just like literally like AR-15 bullets, just like, all over the fucking place, just saltines all over.
Dude, I remember that. I stuffed that son of a bitch in his fan. It was like fucking saltine crackers everywhere.
I remember our buddy Dame was like, you got saltines in my fucking eye, and you're like, don't be salty about it. And then
oh my goodness.
The worst thing though was the guy you lived with's girlfriend was such a bitch. I mean, like beyond belief bitch. Every single time she had something negative to say about somebody, she like ran with it and then hid behind her boyfriend, like didn't ever stand up to scrutiny. So I remember you were so pissed at her because of a note she left you. This was the same day. You were already pissed off and she left you like this really aggressive note. And you guys were so white trash poor that you guys had a bunch of Solo cups with your guys' names on it to like reuse. And I remember you fucking decided like, fuck this bitch. So you filled it to the brim with your piss. Like you pissed all the way up this cup. And then poured it out and put it back in the pantry, or put it back in like the cup area, and you were like, fuck that bitch. And I saw this happen, but our friend Damon did not see it happen. So later that day, Damon goes to the cups and he thinks it'll be a good burn to drink out of her cup. Do you remember this?
Oh, I do.
So
God.
he goes, he drinks a glass of water, and I shit you not, he drinks this glass of water so quick. He like chugs. He goes, "Oh my God, that was the best water ever." And we didn't understand what he was talking. Like we were like, "Okay, cool." And then he was like, "It was kind of like sugary though." And then I looked at the cup and I was like, "Well, Dusty must have diabetes because you just drank that motherfucker's piss." So out of solidarity, because Damon felt so awful, we both took sips out of the piss cup for like broship. We're like, "All right, I'll take it." I'm like, which shouldn't have been a big deal for you. You know, because it's your own piss. But for me, I was like, I got to sip Dusty's piss, and I didn't even do anything wrong. Fuck. So I just took a fucking sip. I was like, whatever, fuck it. Because we were boys, you know?
I felt so bad. My plan was so flawless. And Damon's like, I'm going to drink the piss cup.
Yeah, he didn't know it was piss in there ever. He was like, I'm going to use her cup. You know, with his fucking
oh no,
his fucking slippery ass chapstick lips and shit.
She used to get so mad. We used to make fun of this honeybee song.
Oh, by Blake Shelton, because she was like, she was so country trash. Not that all country people are trash, but this one definitely was. She was so country trash that she cried every single time she heard Blake Shelton's Honeybee. And I'm just like, so we would like sing it and like pretend to cry like honeybee, like fake crying. And she was just like, fuck you, fat assholes. I fucking hate you. And I'm just like, all right, well, okay, whatever you say. If anyone's got a fat asshole, it's because of the whole turkeys you're eating and shitting out. You know, like she was like always binge eating and was like this. She was so gross, dude. I remember when I came in once to pick you up for something, there was just a plate of boned, like just chicken bones and fucking mayonnaise. And it was like, it looked like it had been there for a while. And I was like, Dusty, you're not going to clean that up? He's like, I'm not cleaning up after her. And I'm like, well, how long has that been there? He's like, I don't know, like a week?
She was fucking gross.
She was nasty.
Dude, I want you to know, she was always like, and her boyfriend was always like, "Oh, you better be careful. She'll beat you up." And I'm like, "Yeah, you guys better be careful. She'll eat you up."
Like, I don't like to make fun of people's weight, but I'm a big person, and this girl was so awful all the time. All the fucking time. I'll make fun of her in any way possible. Like, I hated her. I remember at one point, we were super into Dead Island at this point. And we would always, who do you voodoo, bitch? And we would sing that song all the time. And I remember she came in and we were playing that, and she fucking, like, we were literally all in the middle of dancing around. Everybody was having a good time. We were all literally dancing around like children, screaming, singing it. Her boyfriend, me, you, Damon. I think Zeth was there, but probably not because he was always grounded. But somebody else was there. I don't remember who.
He's probably grounded.
Yeah, he's probably grounded. But we started screaming and dancing around to it, like just like being fucking chill, like, you know, like having a little moment. And she changed the song, and we're like, what the fuck is wrong with you? And then she said, I don't, and I quote, listen to retard music. Like, what an elegant woman, you know? I don't listen to retard music. Like, fuck you. Like, what do you know about Sam B, bitch? Damn.
Right. Who do you voodoo, bitch?
He got a zombie army, and you can't harm me.
Dude, who do you voodoo, bitch?
He drinks blood like a vampire without warning.
Like, who do you voodoo, bitch?
It was so ridiculous. Oh my god.
The fact that you remember the lyrics is mint, though, it's super good.
No, that song's amazing. And we also had such time with it. I remember when this was right after you dropped out. I was in Mr. Wozniak's class. Shout out to Mr. Wozniak. I'd love to have you on the podcast. I was in Mr. Wozniak's class, in drama club with Mr. Wozniak, and I was making flyers for people to join drama club. And I was like inductee president because you had dropped out. So I was apparently the first sophomore president of the drama club. So that was cool. But I made all these posters, and it was of me, you, and Damon, because I was making the posters like right before you dropped out, and then you dropped out, so the posters already made. And it just said, who do you voodoo, bitch? And it was like the sign up date, or like the show up date for drama club, and it was 3 different pictures of me, you, and Damon, like making goofy faces. You had like a frying pan on your head. You know,
that was my prom photo.
Yeah, we had like these it's like, who do you voodoo, bitch? And I remember when he found out that I made it, for one, I was in like so much trouble because I wrote bitch on a bunch of fucking posters for school. But I also remember that a shit ton of people showed up. So I was like, you know, take it or leave it, buddy. It worked.
I'll tell you what, I'll go because I still have that picture on my Facebook. I'll go through my Facebook and I'll find that picture and I'll send that shit to you.
I'll put it on the thumbnail for the video.
Because I definitely have that picture still.
I just remember, like, oh my god, he was so angry. And you know, we would always do shit like that. Like we were always so goofy. I remember at one point, back when Skyrim was huge. The thing is like when Skyrim first came out, people did not know what the fuck the Dragonborn said. We always thought, people know now it's Fushro Da, right? But when we first started, it just sounded like he yelled the word boosh. So we had this game where we'd run through the hallways. Do you remember this? We would yell boosh at the top of our lungs at our friends, and they'd have to fall down and drop all their shit and throw it everywhere. Do you remember that?
Yes.
You were like boosh, and then like whoever you did it to, like there was no, if you didn't do it, we would proceed to whoop your ass. So you had to do it. So I remember the funniest one was our friend Joe, because Joe is not like a super animated dude. He's very laid back, not into being like super animated for anybody. He like pretty much walked around with his hair in his face, like very much like, you know, like anime weeaboo kind of style kind of kid. And we did it to him, and he knew the rule. So his way of like falling down and freaking out was he just dropped his books and then proceeded to lay down very gently. And it was almost funnier than like when we threw shit everywhere, because he just stopped dead, stood straight up, dropped his books perfectly on the ground, and then laid on top of them. Like so slow. It was so fucking funny.
Dude, I miss Joe. I haven't seen Joe in forever. But also, let it be known that we never beat the shit out of Joe because Joe did judo and he used to throw us around.
Oh yeah, but still, like if all of us went after Joe, he would have gotten hurt. There was a lot of us.
Oh yeah, we could have took him.
But like, you know, he's not gonna pull a "wanna mess with my team" moment. But I remember during the play though, we would do it so much. I mean, so fucking much that Mrs. Catherine made a fucking poster and hung it in the auditorium, and it said "No booshing allowed." Oh, dude, so good. Also, another person who'd be really cool to have on the podcast, Mrs. Catherine, reach out. She was on CNN recently, so she's probably...
Yeah, I know. Miss Catherine's a very interesting person.
Yeah, she was like a radio host for a while. So, Miss Catherine, you know, I'm out here. Your student has now come to your not to your level, but is trying to follow in your footsteps. Yeah, I mean, like there's so many great memories, and you know, we can pick up more on memories in like a part 2, you know. But there is one last question I want to ask you. Are you prepared for it? All right. I think I'm picking this up from a lot of different podcasts, but I think it really shows the inner workings of a person based on their answer. It's a 2-parter. 1, do you believe in ghosts? And 2, what is a ghost story you have?
I do believe in ghosts, absolutely. And one time I had, and this like, it's weird. I had found like a cabin in the woods type deal, and like it was like full of like trash and stuff. People did squat in there, and like I was walking around, and I fell through the floor into the basement.
Jesus Christ!
And the water heater fell through the floor and like blocked the staircase. And it was like an old dirt basement. There's no windows. And it fell to the floor and locked me in. Well, I couldn't get out. And I was like, all right, whatever. I was just going to sleep in this basement because I couldn't get out. Nothing to get in, you know. And I was just going to figure it out in the morning. We would figure it out in the morning how I was going to get out. And I fell asleep for like a little bit. I don't know what time it was, but I woke up and it was, you know, I could kind of see through the cracks between the water heater, like light, but it wasn't, you know, daylight. It was like dusk light. So it was probably around 2 or 3 in the morning, I would have to guess.
Yeah.
And I woke up, like, and I was looking around, and I was going to go back to sleep. Well, when I went to sleep, there was nobody in the room with me. When I woke up and looked around, there was somebody crouched in the corner. But it was really dark, and they kind of, like, matched the shadow.
Fuck me.
So I went over, and I touched, like, a tap to see what it was. I tapped the person on the shoulder, and the person it was like charred, like they had burned, I guess you would say. So I went out, and like they turned around, and all I could see was like a couple teeth, and like the sockets were empty, and the nose was like still had like flakes of skin from where it had a nose.
Fuck me.
And she like touched me, and I blacked out. Well, when I woke up, I was in the same spot I went to sleep in the first time, and I thought I was dreaming. Well, when I got to looking around to find my way out, throughout the night, the heater had shifted through the steps that led to the basement and left just a wide enough gap for me to climb out, climb and get out. When I was looking around, there were claw marks in the dirt wall that weren't there when I had went to sleep.
Fuck, dude.
And they were all over the house, all over the basement, and there were still like flecks of skin in it.
Fuck.
So I promptly got up and got out of there, and I never went back.
That's so fucking nuts. So what I found is from people I've talked to is that even though there's people who literally like will tell you up and down like ghosts are not real, there's no way it could be possible, but everybody still has a story like that. So I'm like, well, if you have a story like that, how do you just absolutely dismiss the idea? Not that I'm like a full on like ghosts are real, Ghost Adventures is real. I believe in the Long Island medium. She makes a wicked clam chowder and she can tell that she can talk to ghosts. Like I'm not there, you know what I mean? But but definitely like there's something. You know, I think, you know what I think we should do? I think we should get the boys together and we should do a video. I don't know how possible this is going to be anytime soon, but I want to do this. We should go ghost hunting.
Dude, I'm so in. I remember when we used to scare ourselves stupid with like creepypastas.
Oh my God, I know. Fucking Rap Rat, dude.
Rap Rat.
I remember okay, well, here's a story for me. Because I got tons
Dude,
of shit.
And if we ever touch on ghost stories, I mean, I have a couple more myself that are pretty good.
Let's say, because we'll probably do multiple parts of this. Let's do a new ghost story every episode we do. Because I'm definitely gonna interview you a second time and a third time because we only scratched the surface. But I want to tell you about a time that I was scratched internally. So we had I was at Zeth's house. Shout out to Zeth, love you, buddy. We were at Zeth's house. And his parents had built like multiple rooms in the basement, right? And it was fine, you know, it's basement rooms, but they weren't fully attached to the ceiling, like you could see over them because he like didn't connect it to the ceiling of the basement. And I remember, dude, we were talking about Rap Rat all night because you guys were always trolling me about it because I was super weirded out by any sort of like costumed or animated figure in regards to like horror stuff. It just always freaked me out. And I remember, dude, I think I was like, what is it called? Sleep paralysising all over the place. Because I do have that issue.
Yeah.
I realize now that this is what this was. But I was laying in, I think, Damien's bed, Zeth's brother, because he wasn't home. And I could sleep in his bed. And Zeth's in the adjoining room next to me. And I'm laying in the bed. And I look up. And I swear I see Rap Rat's little rat fingers on top of the ceiling, like on top of the wall. And I went, what the fuck is that? And so I knew I was asleep, so I like forced myself to wake up, right? And when I woke up, I was still like obviously looking in the same direction. It kind of like blinked out of existence. But then the loudest scratch runs across the door while I was totally awake. To the point where Zeth came out of his room and said, what the fuck are you doing? Because it was like 5 a.m. I was like, dude, I'm not doing shit. He was like, what was that? I'm like, and I didn't tell him what I thought it was for a couple of days because I'm like, how the fuck do you tell somebody that? But that shit was fucking scary, dog.
Dude, Rap Rat was creepy. We used to scare the shit out of each other. And that basement had a creepy fucking vibe to it anyway.
Yeah, that basement was creepy as fuck. That basement was so creepy. It was like it wasn't like in bad shape. Like it wasn't like a watery basement, but it was just like kind of old, and the walls were all like stone, and like somebody had died in that house apparently. At least that's what Zeth. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I'm confusing houses, but I think Zeth told me one time that somebody died in that house. No, never mind. That was Damon's house. The dude killed himself in Damon's house. And I
was gonna say big shout out to Damon's house.
Damon's house. Damon's house was fucked up, dude. It was fucked up. You know what? Maybe I'll get Damon. Maybe when we do the second interview, we'll have Damon on here too, so we can talk about some of that stuff.
Oh hell yeah!
All right, so let me go ahead and wrap up this transmission real fast. Right off the bat, if you liked this, definitely like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel. If you're listening on Spotify, make sure that you follow and share. Or if you're listening on Apple, whatever it may be, I'm going to try to make this available everywhere. It might take a little while to get on Apple because they're a little choosy over there. But given my track record, I'll probably be able to get on it. And you can, if you liked what I did, if you like me as an individual and you want to hear more from me, and this is only episode up, or you already listened to all these episodes, you can check me out on Crosscut Cinema, youtube.com/Crosscut Cinema. We do movie reviews. Me and a group of friends, we go over 2 different movies every week. We try to have them be some sort of conjoining theme, but not always. And then also, if you like that as well, there's a second podcast I do called A Pilot Podcast, where me, recording artist CL Blue, and my fiance go over pilots of TV shows and tell you whether you should continue watching or not. And I'm just going to say this is fingers crossed. I'm hoping that Dusty, if you guys like Dusty, I'm going to try to get Dusty started on some kind of project of his own. I don't know how long out that is. I don't know how well that's going to work out. But if you like Dusty, make sure you let us know. And maybe that'll help us get kickstarted on it a lot sooner. Because as you guys can tell, he's an incredibly interesting and fun person to listen to. Anything you want to add, Dusty?
I mean, my life's like a mountain railroad and the engineer's drunk. And I definitely have umpteen million more chaotic and crazy stories. If you guys wanted to tune in for another episode, man, hey, run it up. I got more than enough time to tell you guys all the crazy adventures.
Yeah, we'll definitely do another Average Joe interview with Dusty after I get some other ones put in there, so there's some variety. But yeah, there's so many stories we didn't touch on, like just right off the top of my head, we had a crazy beach party one time. We'll get into that. There's tons more on the way. So like I said, make sure to like, comment, subscribe on the YouTube channel. Make sure to follow us on everywhere you can follow us. I'm gonna make a Twitter specifically for this eventually. It's not up yet, but if it does happen, it'll be in the description. And I'll be posting this to my personal YouTube channel. So if you're listening, it's going to be on Logan Tyler. So this is a part of kind of my solo projects I want to do. And thank you for listening. Thank you for giving me an opportunity to highlight somebody who I think is incredibly entertaining. And I hope you guys like him too. I think you will. Alrighty, guys. Thank you so much. Have a good one.